I figured with CWL Vegas on the near horizon, I thought I would go ahead and list out my top 5 teams currently leading into the event. My segment with Ton the other day kind of sparked it a little bit. We were kind of talking about pools and whatnot, which you guys can obviously go and check out. But I thought might as well just go on and give my top 5 list. My top 5 teams heading in to Vegas. Now, starting off with number 5, it is kind of difficult for me to choose this particular one. And I want to list off a few attributes and see if you can guess the team that I'm talking about. First things first, 2 SMGs that can dominate, one of them of which was arguably top 5 last season in his position, an assault rifle player who you could also argue was top 5 in his position and at times was pretty much the sole leader of the team when it came to stats. They also have 2 players who were known probably maybe a title or 2 ago as top 10 in the entire world. Along with that, you've got 3 players from this particular team who together placed top 2 at champs. You know what I'm talking about? Red Reserve. Red Reserve to me is a team that's been very difficult to keep track of. However, based on the talk that I've heard, based on the things that I've heard from this particular team regarding scrimmages, they are the number 1 team in Europe as of this moment. And sometimes whenever you want to talk about a European team, you kind of have to list their achievements without basically saying who they are, because a lot of people will kind of write off and say, oh, it's a European team. Oh, big deal. They add Bance to this lineup, another European player. Big deal about that. Best team to not win a championship last year. I've heard all of those things. That's fine. I appreciate that. However, my biggest thing about this particular group is keeping in mind that they were the best team who didn't win a championship last season, which you could argue probably isn't a title that you probably want to hold very often, because if anything, it's probably a little bit more negative than anything. But to me, with Red Reserve, it's about the chemistry, right? They were one of few teams, right? I should say one of few teams who decided to keep the original roster and just add an excess piece who has been on the team in past. Like I said, even with 3 of them, placed top 2 at champs and Black Ops 3 under Splice. And along with that as well, you also have to keep in mind that Bance, who I'm speaking of most primarily, joins this team and also has chemistry with Zero, right? Played in Infinite Warfare under Splice and placed top 8 at champs all throughout the year, played together on that roster. And like I said, I haven't heard a crazy amount about Red Reserve, and so it's hard for me to put them higher than 5th for the moment. But I think if there is any team who can move farther up on this list, it would be Red Reserve. And I think they have a big advantage when it comes to maybe teams not knowing as much about their strategies outside of, you could argue Lightning Pandas, Team Reciprocity, etc. However, I'm very looking forward to seeing how this team could do, especially with their recent move to Vegas. Now, moving forward, you could argue, right, that I have now my 4th place team. It's so difficult at this moment that I actually have 2 teams tied for 5th. Along with Red Reserve, I also have FaZe. And whenever I tweeted out a rough list a few days ago, I had many people tweeting me and saying, why is FaZe up there? They have no right to be there. And I will say this, I have learned my lesson. After critiquing FaZe for the last few seasons and saying all the things about their online results leading up into a title, I have learned my lesson. You can never doubt FaZe Clan roster moves, and you can never doubt their prior online results. But boy, do I want to, right? Let's go ahead and talk about their placements so far throughout the season. First 2K, top 16. And I've seen countless people, Landon, you cannot judge them by their placement. Look at who they lost to. Look at who they got eliminated by. They lost to McBusy. Name a player on McBusy right now. You can't. You're not going to. You probably might have just thought of Fastball. Literally, Fastball, M. Ruiz, Profizi. I love those guys, right? I love those players. Great dudes, and they are working their way up into being professionals. But if you are a team like FaZe Clan, you shouldn't be losing to that team. Okay, let's look further. That was the first 2K. Next 2K, also plays top 16. Lose to Orgulus, which is now straight ripping. Okay, I understand that. And or later actually lost to them as well. So, moving forward, Pro Down. First Pro Down event. Top 12. Lose to E United 4-2 in the winners bracket. Later get knocked out by who? Team known as Underage Goats. Illy, Simp, Celium, the future of Call of Duty Esports, but they should not be losing to a team like this. And it almost seems as if at this point that I'm almost critiquing more than I am giving a highlight to FaZe Clan for even being on my top 5 list. But I say all those things to preface what I'm going to say now. FaZe Clan started off World War II in the open bracket. At that same event, they later went on to finish top 4 at Dallas due to shaky online results, right? They were a pro team, a very well-known pro team, going into the open bracket come out in top 4. They finished top 12 at Birmingham around the time of Stage 1. People are starting to question, how is this team looking? What are they going to do? They later, in Stage 1, go on to beat Optic Gaming and become Stage 1 champions in one of the most dramatic series of the entire season. They're knocked out in Round 1 at Champs after losing to Game 5 to Envious. They later go on to place top 3 and lose a nail-biting Game 5 versus Team Caliber to go to the Grand Finals. You can never doubt FaZe. Simple as that. You can never doubt them. I think they look great on paper, and I think, honestly, the addition of Methods was a smart move for them. I think it adds chemistry, and I think pretty much on the same line of Red Reserve, these two teams work very, very similar as far as kind of adding an extra piece, and I think the chemistry is only going to help it out. Moving forward to number 4, I've got Luminosity. This is probably one of the hardest teams for me to call at this moment. In scrims, I've heard that they've been rapidly improving, but on paper, this team possesses the, if not one of the, scariest big threes in Call of Duty today. John, Gunless, and Formal. Realistically, LG could be top 3, or to me, they could also be top 6, top 7. It depends on how they work in tandem together. How are they going to deal if they lose a match, if they lose a series? How are they going to deal with the pressure, which I'll talk about more in a second. And the one thing that I want to talk about with LG is the incredible skill ceiling that they have. And whenever I say that, I say this. A team can only get so much better at shooting their weapon, right? A team can only get so much better. Like, you can obviously improve that, but for the most part, you don't see a drastic change in the middle of the season where it's like, wow, this guy is just shooting way better than he was in the past. It just doesn't happen very often, if ever at all, especially with top-tier teams. However, what we have seen from time to time, and it's odd for me to argue this, but at times we have seen teams get better when it comes to communication, when it comes to chemistry. None of these top 3 players, right, that I'm talking about have teamed together before on a top-level squad, right? It's not happened. And so it's odd coming into a title that they will be, but I think that they, much like Hunter T, are only going to get better because of this reason. And my biggest worry, and the reason why I preface talk about Luminosity was saying that I am worried about how they're going to deal if they do come through a loss, is that they have Red Reserve in their pool to start off Vegas. That is probably my favorite and most interested matchup of the entire group stage, is to see how that game goes because of how talented I know that LG can be. And I have been giving them so much critique, talking about the loss of JCap. And I think, honestly, they'd be a top 2 team guaranteed today if they kept JCap on the roster. But hey, we move on, and we'll see how talented Luminosity can be heading into Vegas. But I had them at 4. Moving on to 3, I've got 100T. The Thieves I have in the 3rd spot because, much like LG, starting off the year, they were a team who struggled. They were a team who was not looking great at all. There were conversations of, due to the negative feedback that they had been receiving on Twitter, it was rumored that they were going to stop streaming because of this. They wanted to kind of focus on their game plan and allow for their chemistry to kind of work on itself without having thousands upon thousands of viewers watch them every day. And much like Luminosity as well, this is one of my favorite teams on paper, right? You've got some incredible talent, and you've got pretty much a new combination of players outside of the old TK team, which is Enable, Pharaoh, and Kenny. But none of these guys have teamed in the past, right? You have Octane and essentially Slasher, who were rivals in the AR category, now on the same team. And to have that duo together is incredibly scary, along with the MVP play that we saw from Kenny last year. Now, they placed top 2 in the previous Pro Down and are currently, as of this moment, as I'm recording this, guaranteed top 3. However, I want you to keep in mind, right, because obviously placements are important, but it's about who they played against. I've learned that, right? It's important who they've played against to get to those placements. They beat G2 twice, Envy twice, and Splice. Okay, decent teams. Not anyone that I have in my top 5 or my maybe top 6 currently. However, it isn't the worst stat line in the world. That's why I haven't advanced them past the next team. I almost said it out loud. That's why I haven't advanced them to the next spot as of yet. But this team, very high skill ceiling, excited to see what they can do. And I think, unlike LG, they possess a dedicated IGL, which I think is going to help them out tremendously. Now, moving on to number 2, I feel like this one is pretty easy to think about now. It is E United. We have arrived at Mr. Consistent so far throughout this game. There's not many teams who have been consistent so far. It's kind of been one dramatic or another, and E United is one of those teams who has been consistent, and consistent who they lose to as well. First 2K, top 4 placement. Lose to Opti Gaming, who goes on to win the entire online tournament. Second 2K, top 2. Who do they lose to? Opti Gaming. First Pro Down, place top 6. Okay, not the worst, not the best either. Probably would have expected them to place higher. Who do they lose to? Opti Gaming. And later, who do they get knocked out by? Luminosity. And I want to target this very, very carefully. I think E United has a solid slang front. I do. I think they have a decent team right now when it comes down to slang. When you look at Arstees, you look at Abizi, and even Clayster as well right now. They're a very smart team, but my worry is the skill ceiling conversation, right? Teams can improve their chemistry over time. 100T, LG, even if you want to throw Optic Gaming in there to a point, they can improve on chemistry. However, whenever it comes to certain things, right, with United, I don't know how much better their slang power is going to get. I don't know how that's going to continue to improve over time. But I know one thing with those teams that I listed, 100T, LG, OG, you know what they're doing? They're improving strats every day. Their chemistry is getting better each and every day to make that slang go exactly where it should be, to fill lanes, to fill gaps, which should be there. And I don't know if United has the capability to do that. Are they improving their gun skill every day? Are they improving it at the same pace that the other teams are improving their faults? I don't know. I don't know. That's the thing to be worried about right now. I don't know if that's actually going to help them. Now, United, they have the chemistry, they have the communication, which is great, but do they have the slang power to push them over the edge? And that was the biggest deal last year, right? And in World War II, their biggest deal was top 6 placements. And I want to take a look at their placements very quickly. Dallas, top 6. Lose to the team that won the event in Team Caliber and FaZe. NOLA, top 6. Lose to the team that won the event in TK and lose to Red Reserve. Atlanta, top 6. Don't make it out of their groups and later get knocked out by Envy. Stage 1, top 6. Lose to the Rise Nation squad and winners and later knocked out by the team that won the event in FaZe Clan. After these events took place, they later add Fellow. Don't see a great placement. See a decent one at Champs, arguably, obviously, top 4. Not bad at all. But my biggest thing is that E United hasn't been making the right roster moves. And everyone was happy, right? And I was happy as well whenever they picked up JCap. But this was not the team that JCap should have gone to. JCap wasn't meant to go to E United. He was meant to go to 100T. He was meant to go to LG, to be the IGL for players who are all talented but don't know how to work together. E United knows how to work together. We know this, right? They have chemistry. The Twins, along with Clayster, they know how to work together. They added Beezy, already great friends with the Twins. Works very well already with Clayster. JCap will not be fully utilized on this team because he needs to be the assist man. It's hard to be a point guard with role players around you. You need stars. And not saying that these players can't be stars, but so far, based on their achievements up to this point, I don't know how long they can last as one of these top teams. And I will preface what I just said with this. Clayster's playing great. Prestini feels more confident on Treyarch titles and was amazing at Black Ops 3. For those who didn't get to watch him, I casted over him countless times in Black Ops 3. Very solid player. Arstees is Mr. Consistent, and Abizi has looked like one of the best pickups of the entire offseason up to this point. But how long can E United keep the engine running for? I should say this. Do they have enough coal to keep the furnace going? And that's the question to be asking right now, is how long can E United last at this position? And are they going to solely relate on smarts? How long would that last? Or is the slang going to be there? Many questions for E United. However, a question that doesn't need to be asked is, who is my number 1 position? Easily Optic Gaming. Undoubtedly the best team in the game currently, as of this moment, have won every major online tournament, both 2Ks, the Pro Down, and currently sit in the finals of the second Pro Down right now, versus top teams, right? Versus top teams that I have went through and added all the map counts for and all these online tournaments. They are 31-3 and have yet to lose a series. I've seen a lot of people post on Reddit and even Twitter and are saying, well, you could argue Luminosity, you could argue E United, you could argue 100 Thieves, etc., etc. Coming into Vegas, there should not be another favorite. There shouldn't be Anyone who thinks another team is the favorite coming into Vegas either didn't hear me correctly when I said they haven't lost a series or clearly haven't been watching anything at Black Ops 4. There is no question who is the number one team coming into Vegas based off of stats, based off placements, whatever you want to throw out there. And the core reason behind all of that to me is the number one pickup they had in the offseason, and that is Dashy. I think based on how well he meshes with the team and how comfortable he is, I think this team really looks phenomenal at this point. OG has a consistent Slayer and Dashy that really isn't going to butt heads with Crim6. It's not going to butt heads with Scump. And now they don't have to worry about the arguments, right, that can come with that third Slayer. Having Dashy and TJ Halley obviously allows for Scump and Crim6 to really not work on Search and Destroy, but to kind of work on their respawns, which is what they've always been good at. And along with that, their Search and Destroy is rapidly improving because Karma's also there to help decide strats, along with the knowledge that Dashy has and the knowledge that TJ Halley has as one of the best S&D players in the game last year. TJ is providing great support, looking awesome. Scump and Crim6 look to be back in form, especially Scump, which is probably the most important of the two. Karma's filling in the gaps, roaming and making the highlight plays. And like I said, Dashy is Mr. Consistent each and every game. Now, I say all of that stuff. I give all the credit to Optic Gaming just to say this. My only worry about Optic of this moment, because we know all the stat lines. Like, this hasn't ever happened before online. We've seen this happen before. What I want them to do essentially is to forget about all of those stats. Forget about all the records when it comes time for Vegas. Because I remember the tweets. I remember the interviews, right, that were done leading into World War II. After they won the championship in Infinite Warfare, I remember all of those things. And you know what they were? We're not going to lose an event. We're not going to lose we're not going to lose a map when it comes into World War II. All of us on Boots in the Ground, the dynasty on Boots in the Ground, the most accomplished dynasty of all time on Boots in the Ground for World War II. Are you kidding me? And I'm not going to lie. Not that they fooled, but they were fooled, right? They didn't practice hard enough. I guess you could say they were comfortable coming into a title because of how well that they were playing. And it turned out to be the worst year ever for the Dynasty, the worst year ever for Crim6, for Scump, for Karma, for Formal. Worst year of their entire careers. You could even argue at some points whenever Octane and Methods joined was not at all a comfortable position for them to be in either. And so now, what I want for the Dynasty previously to have done is what this team should be doing now, which is to get rid of all of those placements, get rid of all the maybe possibly ego, and what is reserved, right? It is deserved at this point. Get rid of all of that, focus up for Vegas, and prove what they've been doing online. Now, if you have any other top fives of this moment, if you have another top five, if you want to argue something, if you even want to throw your opinion out there, feel free to get involved on social media by using the hashtag the Esports Dispatch, and send me over your list, and we'll see whether or not we agree or whether or not we could have a few conflicting choices.